Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Here.
Councilmember Allen.
Here.
Councilmember Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Vice Mayor Howergy.
Here.
And Mayor Linsky.
Here, thank you. Okay, please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, up next is a brief summary of current events by the mayor, city council, and/or city manager. And the public body does not propose, discuss, or deliberate, take any legal action on any matter brought up during the summary unless the specific matter is properly noticed for legal action. Is there anyone on the council that has something to share?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I was thinking. I just wanted to let everybody know that yesterday's motorcycle run for the Cottonwood Firefighters Association, we raised just over $3,000 that was given to the Cottonwood Firefighters Association. That's excellent.
Very good. Anyone else? The city manager have anything to report?
Mayor, council members, just a reminder to the public that our Public Works Department is accepting Christmas trees for disposal free of charge. Trees may be dropped off at the city's reclaimed water fill station, which is on the west side of Mingus Avenue. And the drop-off site is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Also, just a good news item, the Rotary Club of the Verde Valley just donated 4 Arizona ash trees to the city that are being planted or have been planted in front of the new riverfront water reclamation facility.
Very good.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Allen.
I did want to make one mention, and maybe Doug knows the exact date and time. I had heard that there was going to be a fundraiser at the Moose Lodge for our officer who has cancer. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not.
I had heard that that was this Saturday. I'm sorry I don't have all the information, so
Okay.
I'll look it up.
We'll check on that and
see if we can get
out.
it on Facebook.
Okay, great. That'd be good. Okay, then we're going to move on to presentations tonight. We have Phil BOURDON from Yavapai County. The administrator, he's going to present information regarding the Yavapai County jail quarter-cent sales tax. Jail tax, excuse me. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Phil BOURDON, County Administrator, as you said. In the audience and with me tonight is Supervisor Garrison. He's the County Supervisor for District 3, and also Captain Jeff Noonan, who actually runs the jail for Yavapai County, for Sheriff Masher. Just briefly, I'm going to go over a PowerPoint if that's okay with you. It will be brief and to the point, which my board never believes I would do. So if you know the trouble they give me, they usually see about 40 slides. I've got this down to 9.
Okay. Well, it'll be much longer just based on the fact we're waiting for the thing to warm up for you. So,
starting out, I'm just going to let you know that this is a presentation on the funding of the jail district. Looking at the, oh, okay, good. I can point that way. Looking at the funding of the jail district, and what our jail district funds is the construction, operation, and maintenance of the jail facilities. Of course, you know them as the jail facility in the county in Camp Verde. That is what we're currently speaking about. When I look at the jail district or the jail for Yavapai County that serves all the cities and towns, I look at where the funding is coming from. That is $18.1 million annually currently in the budget that we fund the jail operations with. And what I'm here tonight to talk about is that 48% of the funding, that is a quarter-cent sales tax that I just want to go over a little bit because the Board of Supervisors is asking the public to extend that tax again for another 20 years. As you can see, 48% of our funding for that jail comes from a quarter-cent sales tax that is countywide. 43% comes from the county general fund. Those are revenues like state shared sales tax, county sales tax, and other miscellaneous funds that we receive, like payment in lieu of taxes from the federal government. Where's that funding going? Very important, a jail runs 24 hours, 365 days a week. It is labor intensive. Almost 70% of the jail is funding the support and officers that run it. It hits my mind every once in a while when you really look at the amount of money you have to spend on the detention officers, but that's how you keep them and your public safe, by staffing it appropriately. So that's where the funding for the jail district goes to run the jail. You have services, supplies, and capital, about 2% of capital each year to make sure that we're maintaining the jail appropriately. Just a little history of the jail. Approximately just before 2000, in 1999, the Board of Supervisors formed a special district, and the whole purpose of that was to make it a standalone district that would fund the jail, and a majority of the funding come from a sales tax. So following that formation in 2000, the voters, about 70% of the voters in the county, approved a 1/4-cent sales tax for 20 years. Somebody asked me recently, why was it 20 years and not permanent? Well, obviously the board at that time, which I've talked to numerous times about this, felt establishing a period of time with the public and saying, we're gonna do it for 20 years and bring it back to you, is a good faith effort for people to bring and ask you to fund something with that sales tax. So that sales tax in 2020 expires. That's an $8.7 million hole in our budget that we're going to have. And so the Board of Supervisors recently came to the conclusion and voted to place it on the ballot for the extension of that existing sales tax. It's going to be on an all-mail ballot. March 13th is the ultimate day, but early voting starts about February 16th. So you'll start to see your ballots mailed out February 16th. The point I'm trying to make there is this is the history, and we're coming to a point where this jail district, if we do not extend the sales tax, is going to have an issue and have to revert back to funding through other methods like our general fund. And quite frankly, funding from cities or towns. The reason I wanted to bring that up is right there where it says relieve this cities and towns of charges for inmates. Back in 2000, when this was formed, and I think Mr. Bortosh probably is aware of this and probably dealt with it at that time, maybe. Cities and towns had to budget for the inmates they had in county jails. It was a very difficult issue because you had to pay us for the days that inmates were in for certain types of crimes. When this district was formed and established in 2000, you were able to eliminate that out of your budget. So that is a very big benefit for cities and towns, and we're trying to be very open about that. We prefer to continue that way, but if this tax does go away, the county will be looking back and preparing fees that we will have to charge cities and towns. We always try to put up something, what does this visually mean to you? When I look at a cup of coffee, which here you got a $4 cup, it's 1 penny for the jail district tax. We had to change the logo here so we didn't get in trouble with a certain vendor, local vendor and national vendor. Something we always try to talk about. The county sheriff, the Board of Supervisors, and the criminal justice system has worked very hard to make sure we keep people out of jail that do not need to be in jail. I'm not going to go over every one of these, but quite frankly, they've worked very hard on behavioral health issues, veterans issues, trying to make sure we're privatizing where we can, like jail medical services. All of the actions of the county over the years for our jail have been to try to keep it cost-effective and keep the inmates that are there, the ones that should be there. Before I go on, I'd like to point out for you and the public, we've given you a trifold pamphlet. It goes over some of the information. We also have a website that you can go to and find out more information, yavapaijail.com. One of the things I'll end with, again, as a reminder about the vote by mail election, This is the first countywide vote by mail election that we have done. We have been working for years to try to move towards completely vote by mail, and this will be the first that our recorder will be doing that's purely the entire county. You'll see ballots go out mid-February. Lastly, important things I'd like to leave with you. This proposal extends a current existing quarter-cent sales tax. Taxes remain the same. It provides for jail safety and efficiency. With that, Mayor and Council, again, I have Supervisor Garrison here who probably can add much more. We have Captain Noonan here also to answer any questions, and we're here for you.
Very good.
A couple things I want to expand on real quick before we get into questions and answers is some of you were on the council when I was about 3 years back when Chip and Phil came and did this same presentation and asked for our support in moving forward getting this tax passed. And at that time, everybody sat here and we all shook our heads and yeah, we support the concept, what you're doing, we understand the finances, but that was as far as the expectation of support went in those days. I think one thing that needs to be remembered in this process is that we are all part of the jail district. It's not the county jail district. It's the county jail district. So we don't own it. The people own it. And if we, as a group, cannot get this passed and get the public to continue to support it with this quarter-cent sales tax, it will go away in 2020. When it goes away, it means you are going to have to incorporate a line item in your budget every year to pay for those charges. Those charges right now are in excess of $300 a booking. They're in excess of $140 a day that we keep an inmate in jail. And that whole list of services that are provided right now by the jail district will probably not exist any further because we won't be able to pay for those. The loss of the jail tax for the county would be about a 10% hit to our budget. What's going to happen with us is we're going to end up raising the levy to accommodate that hit, and it still will not hit the number that we're bringing in from that tax right now, which means we're going to have to make some drastic cuts. This program will see probably some of those extreme drastic cuts. So we have, is it Lieutenant now or Sergeant? It's in the back. Well, I just wanted to, you know, he has to deal with this for you. And the chief was going to be here today to talk about what they were going to do. One thing I want you to remember or think about is this jail district provides safety, and it provides safety without having to think about your budget because it's our budget. So when he's in the field and his officers are in the field dealing with a person or a situation, they're not worried about how it's going to get paid for. They're worried about what makes the public safe and what makes the inmates safe. What do we need to do to create a positive outcome in this situation, or as positive as can be? So those are really important tasks and important concepts. And getting back to budget, I don't know what you would think of a 10% increase to your budget at the moment, but I know we would not have fun with it either. So I also have Sergeant Noonan here to talk about the jail if you have any questions about how it's run. But I think one of the things that we try and really get across to the public when we go out and meet with individual groups is all the services that the jail really provides. People think of the jail as just a bed for the night. It's not. It is a whole list of services. We don't want people in jail any longer than they have to be there, and if there's any way possible to move them out, we do as expediently as possible and still keep the community safe. So.
Okay. Commander Isinga or Captain Noonan, would you care to make a presentation as well?
Sure. Council members, Commander Gary Isinga from Cottonwood Police Department. You know, I don't really have too much to add except to echo what they said. Certainly we've done that in the past where we had to provide a daily rate for each individual. My understanding is this could be up to $300 just for an intake fee and then additional 100 and some per day per inmate. And again, that would involve trying to budget. It's difficult to budget for how many people you're going to arrest throughout the year. We don't want officers making these decisions based on a budgetary commitment from the city, we would probably end up citing and releasing individuals whereby currently we may not do that or wouldn't do that. Short of building our own jail facilities and staffing that, which I don't think we want to do, nor can we afford to do that. You know, again, it's a program that's been in place for all of 18 years now. It's been working very well.
Okay. And do you have any information on a lot of the programs that are offered now through the jail, diversionary programs that exist now? Were those offered 20 years ago when the city of Cottonwood?
I don't believe they were.
Okay.
I know they made some vast improvements, in especially like mental health care,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly Captain Newman can answer that.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Good evening, Captain.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Captain Jeff Newnham, and I am the jail commander. And no, sir, we did not have these programs 20 years ago. I like to just give a quick kind of snapshot of what the jail looks like, because people they're not familiar with the jail, and that's probably a good thing for many reasons. But, you know, Yavapai County is about 225,000 people right now. Our jail has an operational capacity of 515 beds. So we have 644 beds, but operationally, with classification, you put females here, you put males here, we can only operationally hold 515 inmates. Last year, our average daily population was 579. We hit 647 in the summertime, and we hit 600 a year ago from now. So our jail is full, and so Sheriff Masher, knowing that over the last few years, we have looked at any ways to reduce the population, and hence that's where a lot of these programs were born. But a lot of the things that we're trying to do right now is to look at how we can reduce recidivism so people that are committing those low-level misdemeanors don't come back with major felonies. And so that's what a lot of these programs are doing, are linking them to care. As soon as they get out, we're linking them to behavioral health, mental health, substance abuse, homes, to keep them from coming back. But what I would like to just let you know, currently you're going to hear people say, well, if we just let everybody who is using marijuana out of jail, it'd be empty. That is not the case at all, folks. I will tell you that our average length of stay for misdemeanors, all misdemeanors, including domestic violence, DUIs, criminal damage, theft, all that, is 4 days. 4 days. That is not the population we're talking about. That's not the population that is in jail. Almost 40% of our population right now, as of today, are not able to even bond out because the charges are so serious and the judge just won't let them out. So you're talking about serious Class 1 felonies that folks are sitting in there for. Today I received information from Wexford, who is our medical provider, and 50% of our current population are suffering from a mental health issue. And a lot of those mental health are committing your more serious offenses, your sex crimes, your violent felonies. But only about 17% of those mental health population are actually taking their medication. So, you know, letting these folks out of jail is just not an option for some of them. And again, we're talking about an operational capacity of 515 beds for 225,000 citizens in Yavapai County. So it's a big deal for us. Like County Manager Phil BOURDON said, you know, my budget is $18.1 million. The jail district brings in $8.8 million right now. We need every dime of that money just to continue what we're doing now. A lot of people, when you look at our jail, they're kind of amazed when I tell them we serve 53,000 meals a month in our jail, because we got to feed everybody 3 times a day. Well, each meal costs about $1. You know, we get it down to 84 cents sometimes, you know, but it's about $1. We dispense 2,000 pills a day in our jail. You know, so when you couple all of these necessities that we're mandated to have, our jail needs to keep moving forward, and we can't go backwards. And a lot of these programs, like Reach Out, like linking folks to care, Angie's House here in Cottonwood, we use Angie's House every single day to link people to come. When they get out of jail, they're just not going back to the streets. If they're coming back to Cottonwood, we can put them in Angie's House. We look for those kind of avenues to keep them from reoffending so they don't come back. And we do that all over the county. I have Audrey Dorfman and her husband Fred Dorfman, who are in the second row here, that are volunteering at the jail at least twice a week. They're there working with our mental health folks every single week. And we have volunteers like that that are in there all the time. So, you know, the staffing, we look at volunteers. We're looking at every way to cut costs that we can. But 90% of our folks in there are in there for felonies, not misdemeanors. Okay, over 90%. So, you know, when you look at that and you hear those arguments, we'll just let the low-level crimes out. We already do. We work with the judges. We work with the prosecutors. They're not the ones that are staying in jail. 4 days on average, they're staying in jail. And a lot of those are there because they have to mandatorily spend 2 days to 10 days for a DUI, or they can't bond out for a family fight, those types of things. So they're in there for a mandatory period of time. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have reference our operation.
Any questions from council? No. Thank you.
2 things I want to finish with. One is this is a mail-in ballot. It's extremely important that you vote. We will be the only item on that ballot, which means a lot of people won't take the time or the effort necessary to fill it out and turn it in, regardless of how you choose to vote. Please vote and tell your friends and neighbors to vote. And if you have any questions, concerns, or your constituents have any questions or concerns, or you feel there's a group that you work with that you would like us to come and talk to share what the jail district is doing and what is provided for with that tax and the continuation of this, please just let us know and we will do whatever we need to come out and help you satisfy those concerns.
Very good.
Right.
Very informative presentation. I appreciate it.
And the room is much smaller when you're sitting in the back.
Yes, did you have a question?
I've got a couple comments. I was on the council when this came about, and I remember before we passed this, the bookkeeping and the accounting was a nightmare, and it did cost the city quite a bit of money. They had to pay for each person that was jailed, and this was the best thing we've really done to help control some of that population. Thank you.
I'd just add one more thing because it reminded me when you said about the bookkeeping and I just finished a study for Prescott Valley because Prescott Valley is very concerned, as you can imagine, about how much this might cost them. So we looked at everybody over the last year that they brought to the jail, misdemeanor and felony. And if the jail district goes away today, they're looking at a line item that's going to cost them well over $1 million just to bring people to the jail.
Yeah, it's very costly.
Any other questions? No. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, thank you very much for your time this evening. I'm going to leave some extra pamphlets just in case you have members of your audience or members of the public in later. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to call to the public. This portion of the agenda is set aside for the public to address the council regarding an item that is not listed on the agenda for discussion. However, the council cannot engage in discussion regarding any item that is not officially listed on the agenda for discussion and/or action. And comments are limited to a 5-minute time period. I have received one slip from a member of the public, and if there is anyone else in the public tonight that'd like to address the council, there are some yellow forms on the back table. Just fill them out and you can speak to the public. So I'd like to call forward Denise Kelly, please. Good evening.
Good evening. Happy New Year.
Thanks.
And let's hope for a prosperous 2018. So I came here to talk about the need for off-site or directional signs. I'm sure this has been talked about before, but I think it's time that we bring it up again for several reasons. I don't know if anyone's noticed lately, but there's been a few business closures in town. Hippie Emporium, whatever that retail business beyond it is, I think that's called Rainbows something.
River's Edge.
River's Edge, thank you. And then also we've had Fire Mountain close as well as Bing's, so there is some concern about, business in Old Town. So, and I look at, what is off of that 3-block radius, because basically everyone sees what starts at the corner here at Pima and Main on down to the corner of, where the jail and bocce is. Pretty much no one knows what's really beyond that. And we know that Adriana's is there, but most consumers don't. And then beyond there this way, also all the way up to, Muse Bistro. So we have a lot of businesses besides, me, who are off street as well, that would benefit. And Brenda's here with Cold Grill for me as well, because even though she's only a block away, she's also in the center of a bunch of closed city buildings. So, I came here to suggest, and I've talked to, a few people on council and community development about how we really, really need those business owners of us that are not super established. We've had a lot of businesses open, and I think we all want to keep them open, right, for tax dollars, help the jail out, pay bills, all kinds of things. And it's a scary time. It's a scary time because, there are a lot of businesses that need some help. So I'd like to come to the council, and ask about that. I also think about Mannheim Gallery, Verde Valley Acupuncture. I had a conversation with her. She's off Main. There's a gallery there off Main as well. There's the Mannheim. And so I think I've gone over all those. And I gave you some examples of directional off-site signs. And I don't know if anyone knows here right now, but Jerome is actually currently going through a directional, or what they're calling a district sign initiative. And they actually have 7 signs already approved at the cost of $76 per sign, as well as the merchants then funding that by paying $10 for a slat on those. And they have those in different districts. So, the way that I see it is more than one sign. It's a sign coming into Old Town, maybe near Hog Wild, I'm not sure. One here at the intersection of, Pima, because we'll also be having Maynard's project come up as well. So that's another directional sign. Maybe one coming in off of Old Town 89A, and perhaps one down at the jail area that says that there's other businesses past that jail. Because, when I first bought my building here in town, it was yes, 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 the city's expanding off of Main Street. Well, I've expanded off of Main Street, and Eric has, and hopefully others will be. But, we need a little bit of help, us other businesses, and we're willing to pay for this. So I hope that we can, possibly get this on a future work agenda, or maybe a committee can be started with community development to start, the process of looking through signs, what design would be picked, and if we can do this, especially if it's funded by the merchants as it's being in Jerome. And the person I talked to at Jerome today, Kyle Dabney, is the zoning administrator, and he also is on the Historical Society, and he's got a lot of great ideas. He used NAU completely free of charge. The interns there in their geographical, forget what the department was, geographical signage and community development department. That was a whole project just for NAU to do free of charge. So there are things that we can do that we don't have to pay for that would be able to help us with a project like that. So I'm not sure what else I have to say rather than in a bigger meeting, but I'm here to ask for your help. There's a lot of historic districts all over the country, and a lot of cities all over the country and the world that utilize these types of signs, in districts where people are not getting, the attention, that they could be. So, was that 5 minutes?
Yes. There it is.
Oh, wow, okay.
Great timing.
What should I do now?
Well, your time is up, and we really can't discuss this because it's not on the agenda, but we have discussed off-premise signage in the past, planning and zoning. We have one commissioner here tonight. I know that you haven't had the opportunity yet, sir, to look over the off-premise signage yet, I don't think, but it's been discussed at length. I would like to get together with you, though, and maybe city manager, and do discuss your concerns. And have you discussed this with Old Town Association at all, this concept?
I haven't yet. It's well, I guess I have to get on their agenda because if you're not on the board, you don't really get to speak. So I have to ask to speak. But I will ask at the next meeting
Okay.
to speak again. I'm trying to get on the board of Old Town Association.
Okay.
So,
Well, we can follow up with the history of off-premise signage, the discussions that have taken place, and then maybe we can get together and have a broader discussion.
okay.
Okay, thanks for being here.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address the council tonight? No. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to unfinished business. We have 3 items. First item is ordinance number 630, amending section 301, amendments or zone changes. F, council action 3 of the city's zoning ordinance, second and final reading. Evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. As mentioned, it's second reading of a text amendment to make changes to Article 3, Section 301. If you remember, it's regarding wording that any changes to an amendment or a project has to go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission before even a word can be changed in what they have recommended to you. Nothing has really changed since the first reading, so if you have any other questions, I can answer them for you. I did send an email out to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and so far I've only gotten one response from a commissioner that still would like to just see it left alone. So that's the only feedback I've received so far.
Okay. Any other questions or further discussion from council on this item? Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve ordinance number 630.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Allen made the motion. House seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Deputy Clerk, please read ordinance number 630.
Ordinance number 630, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending sections 301, amendments or zone changes, F, Council Action 3 of the city's zoning ordinance. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, next under unfinished business is ordinance number 633, amending section 405G, signs of the city's zoning ordinance, second and final reading.
Thank you again. As you mentioned, second reading of the sign ordinance to change the overall height of what's allowed. This was brought to the commission a couple different times, and they agreed that maximum height of 10 feet. Also changing the maximum square footage of a shopping center versus just a regular building on an arterial street. Before, shopping centers were actually allowed less than just a standalone business, which didn't really make a lot of sense. Again, nothing has changed since the first reading. So if you have any other questions or concerns.
Questions from council? No? Do you hear a motion to approve? I'll go ahead and, oh, I'm sorry, did you want to go ahead?
It doesn't matter. I move to approve ordinance number 633.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Alhouse made the motion, Norman seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion is approved. Deputy Clerk, please read ordinance number 633.
Ordinance number 633, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending section 405, signs of the city's zoning ordinance. Mr. Mayor.
All right. Last is ordinance number 634, amending section 301, amendments or zone changes. F, council action 2, second final reading. You again.
Yes, sir. This is just a housekeeping item, mostly. State law changed earlier this year, changing the legal protest for rezones, and we're just keeping up, making the correct wording in our ordinance to match what state law says.
Okay. Questions? Motion?
I move to approve ordinance number 634.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Norman made the motion and Piper seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion's approved. Deputy Clerk, please read ordinance number 634.
Ordinance number 634, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending section 301, amendments or zone changes, F, council action 2 of the city zoning ordinance. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, up next is consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine, non-controversial by the council, and will be approved by one motion. We have 2 items on the consent agenda tonight, and I'll read them for you. Item 1 is service agreement with Optum Healthcare Solutions, LLC for the Fitness Passport Program at the Cottonwood Recreation Center. Item 2 is resolution number 2924, approving a joint defense agreement with the town of Clarkdale for the 2018 Brian Mickelson Marathon. Any items that a council member wishes to have pulled?
I need to have item number 1 pulled.
Okay.
I have a conflict of interest. I work for said company.
Okay. Any other council members? Any other items? Okay, then let's go ahead and take the consent agenda, item 2, if you wouldn't mind staying here, Althouse.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and move to approve consent agenda item 2.
Second.
Mayor made the motion. Councilmember
Pfeiffer.
Pfeiffer seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Deputy Clerk, please read resolution number 2924.
Resolution number 2924, a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, approving a joint defense agreement with the town of Clarkdale, Arizona for the Brian Mickelson Marathon. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move to item 1, which is service agreement with Optum Healthcare Solutions, LLC for the Fitness Passport Program at the Cottonwood Rec Center.
I'll step down.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council. Information as to the service agreement with Optum Healthcare Solutions. Council authorized the original. Well, actually, there was a United Healthcare agreement. This was back in, I think it was November. And so they authorized this. We just did not foresee an additional one, which was actually through the Optum Healthcare program. And so this is actually just the Optum Healthcare Solutions program for the Fitness Passport program. Very similar, almost identical to Silver and Fit and Silver Sneakers program, which actually really benefits the city of Cottonwood, seeing that we have about 62 to 65% of our individuals over the age of 55 years of age. And so what this does is really helps promote with their insurance programs, and that's exactly what this is. I'd take any questions if anybody has any.
Questions from council? No? No. Okay, do I hear a motion?
Move to approve the proposed fitness passport service agreement with Optum Healthcare Solutions, LLC for the Optum Fitness Passport program at the Cottonwood Recreation Center, subject to approval of the final form of the agreement by our city attorney.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Henry made the motion. Councilmember Pfeiffer seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, we'll move on then to appointment of 2 members to the Historic Preservation Commission. Good evening, Ms. Wilbur.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
I just have a quick question because I forget. Am I supposed to step down? We're good for this part of it, right?
We're not grading them. I think they're just appointed.
Okay,
so I think
so we're
you're
good.
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the process is done pretty much. We have 2 openings on our Historic Preservation Commission currently. The openings were advertised, resulting in 3 applications. We went through the matrix review process and the interview process, and the results of the entire process was that Christian Vernosky and Jacob Mickel were the top scoring applicants. Both of them meet the minimum criteria for these seats, and we recommend, since they were the top scoring applicants, that they be appointed to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Very good. Any questions or comments from council? Okay. Then would somebody care to make a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 2926, appointing Christian Vernosky a member of the city's Historic Preservation Commission, and I can do both of them at the same time, right? I also move to approve resolution number 2927, appointing Jacob Mickel a member of the city's Historic Preservation Commission.
Second. Oh.
So we have Councilmember Henry made the motion and Councilmember Pfeiffer seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, then the resolutions are approved. And Deputy Clerk, please read resolution number 2926 and 2927.
Resolution number 2926, a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, appointing Christian Vernosky a member of the city's Historic Preservation Commission, establishing his term of office. And resolution number 2927, a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, appointing Jacob Mickel a member of the city's Historic Preservation Commission and establishing his term of office. Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Thanks. That was tough to score those. They were all really tight. So.
Yes, they were.
All right, we'll move on to resolution number 2925, appointing Dorothy Gonzalez as a civil traffic hearing officer. Good evening, Judge.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. This time it's my honor and privilege to present to you Ms. Dorothy Gonzalez. I think you've had Lynn Reardon discuss her with you before about her performance and how well she's been doing, and she does a great job for us. She has previous experience doing computer work in Cochise County Superior Court, and she's done a great job here. I think the agenda item lists all the reasons for her appointment. One thing I meant to add, but I didn't, is that her being an excellent Spanish speaker and being fluent in Spanish allows her also to resolve cases at the window for people whose cases can be resolved without having to go into the courtroom with those Spanish speakers speaking Spanish without the need of an interpreter. So that saves the city money as well.
Excellent. Any questions from council? Ms. Gonzalez, would you wish to address the council?
No, just
no?
that,
Okay.
well, I'm very happy to be working with the city, and I'm very pleased to be in the court. I've been enjoying my job there. Very challenging, but very, I'm
good, thank you. Okay, if there's no further discussion, then I would move to approve resolution number 2925, appointing Dorothy Gonzalez as a civil traffic hearing officer for a 3-year term beginning January 3rd, 2018.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Allen seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then the resolution's
Happy New
approved.
Year, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year. Deputy Clerk, please read resolution number 2925.
Resolution number 2925, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Arizona, appointing Dorothy Gonzalez as a civil traffic violation hearing officer and establishing her term of office. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, moving on to resolution number 2928, reappointing Robert Hart to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Hello again.
We had one Planning and Zoning Commission seat available due to the expiring term of Mr. Hart. We opened the position, advertised it, and it resulted in only one application, which was from Mr. Hart, who is qualified for this position as it was his position already. That being said, Mr. Hart is here to meet council if you would like to meet him. Otherwise, we recommend that you reappoint Mr. Hart to this position.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Hart, Commissioner Hart, would you care to speak to the council, address the council, tell us why you wish to apply for this? Are you crazy? You just
No. At least in my opinion. My name is Robert Hart. I'm applying for the being on the Planning Commission because I have a desire to contribute, and I think I have something to contribute. Primarily what I learned over the years were, for the city planning part, were with the overseas contracts that I completed. The first one was the city of Yambu. I went over to Saudi Arabia. I was hired by the Ralph M. Parsons Company after I got my license to practice architecture to go over there and monitor the construction of a city from scratch. And when I say from scratch, I mean from scratch. There was a small village nearby. It was called Yambu, but we were building an industrial city, which required bringing in 2 meters of soil to put down before they started building the city. And as part of my work, I had to review the drawings that were being submitted by the architects that were actually designing it. The city had been designed into 5 segments, and there were 2 American architects, a German architect, a French architect, and a British architect. And one of the advantages of being able to look at all that is all the different ways you can put together a city plan. The British had all these small little streets for Mini Coopers. And so it was a real advantage because, as usual, you get to learn from the mistakes. There were a number of mistakes, and we were finding them and fixing them. The second contract that I completed was in Incirlik, which is in Turkey. And it's a NATO Air Force base, it's a United States Air Force base, and it's a Turkish Air Force base. And it's also a city. And with incorporation with a city planner, we were actually working on the city plan. And again, what I found out is that it's not just rearranging the streets. There's a lot of other issues that you have to solve. One of them was drainage. At Yambu, the total vertical change across the entire base was about 3 meters. So figuring out the drainage and solving a lot of drainage problems is part of it. But I mean, again, you're working at it from a nuts and bolts place, and then you're also rearranging the community. And the third contract was in Seoul, Korea, where as part of our contract, we were part of community plans because there were bases and posts, or actually there were no bases. There were posts, there were compounds, there were naval stations, and we were designing the new facilities that were going to go in there. But as part of that, it was a community plan because each one of those was a self-contained community. The people who worked on the base, post, compound, whatever it is, lived there. And so we were doing community planning, which is the same as city planning. And I think all of those, dealing with all of those, gives me some insight into helping develop a city plan.
Very good. Any questions from council of Mr. Hart? I would say if you can handle half dozen French, German, and English architects, you can probably.
Well, it wasn't half a dozen. I mean, there was the French, yes, they were a little difficult. But yeah, it was an interesting balancing act. And every time you had to deal with the interface between, you know, because there's one here, here's the German guys are here, and here's the American, and you've got all sorts of things going on between the two. You've got your sewer lines, you've got your water lines,
right,
and you know, other types of things to be considered.
Well, thanks for re-upping. I do appreciate it. I've seen you in action on the commission, and you do a good job for us. So
thank you.
Thank you.
I move to approve resolution number 2928, reappointing Mr. Robert Hart to the city's Planning and Zoning Commission.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Henry made the motion, and Councilmember Norman seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion's approved. And Deputy Clerk, please read resolution number 2928 by title.
Resolution number 2928, a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, appointing Robert Hart a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission and establishing his term of office. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to resolution number 2929, declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk and entitled the Use Tax Amendments to the Tax Code of the City of Cottonwood.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Today we'll look at the approval of Resolution 2929, making the document titled the Use Tax Amendment to the Tax Code of City of Cottonwood a public record. And we'll open it up first to any public comment before we move on to the ordinance itself and the presentation.
Okay, then I would go ahead and move to approve resolution number 2929, making the use tax amendments for the tax code a public record.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion. Councilmember Allen seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are any opposed? Okay, the motion's approved. Deputy Clerk, please read resolution number 2929.
Resolution number 2929, a resolution of the Mayor and Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, declaring as a public record that certain document file with the city clerk and entitled the use tax amendments to the tax code of the city of Cottonwood. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on then to ordinance number 636 relating to the transaction privilege tax, removing model option number 15, selecting local options number AA and H and J, adopting the use tax amendments to the tax code of the city of Cottonwood by reference, establishing the effective date, providing for severability, and providing penalties for violations. First reading.
Yes, Mayor, Council, this presentation that I have before you right now has been already provided once to, most of it has been provided to the Chamber of Commerce as part of an education process to the public. So I'd like to just go ahead and show it to the rest of the council and whatever public is here at the time, and then explain a couple of things. First of all, the use tax is defined as a tax that is imposed on a purchaser, user, and consumer of storage or the storage of tangible personal property within the city limits. Wanted to point out that 51 cities out of the 92 cities in the cities and towns in Arizona already have a use tax in place, meaning 55.4% of them already have a use tax in place. Please stop me as we go through here. I'll try to make this quick as possible. The biggest difference between the use tax, step up to the mic. The biggest difference between use tax, trying to walk around, between the use tax and the sales tax is the transaction privilege tax, or what we call use tax, and I'll use sales tax for the most part, is that the sales tax is imposed by the seller of an item, while the use tax is usually the responsibility of the purchaser of the item. And there's a difference as to how it's calculated, and we'll go over those items in just a second. Wanted to point out that there's numerous cities of the area communities that have a use tax. As you can see, Sedona, Camp Verde, Prescott has a use tax, Prescott Valley, Chino Valley, Dewey Humboldt, and Flagstaff, the most recent of which was Flagstaff, who instituted a use tax just a few years ago. And our current use tax that's in your packet is actually modeled after the Flagstaff program. Some of the common misconceptions is that the use tax will affect all the local taxpayers. Obviously, it's not a tax on top of a tax. It is a tax trying to recover any type of loss, TBT or use tax that has not been collected by the city of Cottonwood, and I'll show a couple of examples in just a few minutes. The use tax extent will not double our TPT, so it's not 3%, you pay 6%. It has everything to do with purchases for purchasers that acquire property or equipment with a less than 3% sales tax. There are some groups that are posting use tax information from other states and other communities. We're a model city tax code community, as are most of the cities in Cottonwood, especially the smaller ones. And each and every one of us have different exceptions. As you mentioned earlier, Mayor, there's 3 exceptions. There's a boatload of exceptions that you can have. So you can't compare apples to apples. You have to really look at the program itself and try to compare and check the exemptions and so forth. Like I said, we're modeling ours after the Flagstaff program. It's just another tax and spend scheme. Well, in reality, that's exactly what the city does. It actually taxes are what pays for all of our fire, police, and all of the services that we currently have, and that the public continues to ask for more and more services that the city should provide. So yes, we do tax and we do spend. The difference is we are very careful on how we spend our money, and we try to make sure that we get the biggest bang for our bucks. And the last, of course, is that people believe that this thing's approved, and no, it is not approved. It is, if it's approved upon second reading, it would be going into place. Could go or as early as February the 16th, but we are looking at probably, if the council does adopt it, to not institute it until March 1st. It makes it for an even, clean break. Here's a few examples. As the first example, a vehicle is purchased from an out-of-state dealer No taxes are paid in that state. The owner lives and registers the vehicle in Cottonwood. The owner is subject to an Arizona 5.6%, and in this case, Cottonwood 3.0% use tax. The county does not have a use tax. Another big one is, a really big one, could be if a new chain restaurant opens up in Cottonwood, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment are purchased in another state, delivered into Cottonwood, and they don't pay a local sales tax in that other state. The new stores, FF&E, are subject to Arizona and Cottonwood use tax. Yet another, if a vehicle is purchased in an Arizona dealership and the jurisdiction has a lower sales tax, then the owner would be responsible to pay Cottonwood the difference in the taxes. And that would usually be the Department of Revenue and the motor vehicle doing it, not necessarily the city of Cottonwood. Upon registration in the area, you would go ahead and they would go ahead and send you a bill once you register your vehicle. If a vehicle is purchased in a community that has a higher sales tax than the city of Cottonwood, obviously they would not be responsible for any of the Cottonwood use tax, because obviously they would have paid more taxes than the city of Cottonwood currently collects. And also any type of casual sales, arm's length transactions are not subject to the use tax at all. The three exemptions that were mentioned previously that are being considered, of course, are option AA, which exempts the cost of employee meals by a restaurant. Traditionally, they would have to pay for those taxes, but in our case, we'd like to just go ahead and remove that from our code. And the local AA exempts use tax liability on 501c3 organizations based on USC code. And then lastly is the option JJ would exempt use tax liability on tangible personal property stored and used by the city. And the reason we'd like to get that in place is, the simple fact is, we pay the tax and then we have to wait 2 months for it to finally get back to us. So it doesn't make sense for us to go ahead and pay it out and then have to wait for something to come back to us. Some of the benefits of instituting a use tax is that, well, there's no additional cost to the cities. That's basically, we don't have any additional costs to the organization. There's minimal burden to local citizens. It kind of levels the playing field between our local businesses and those outside the community, especially on big ticket items or those items purchased over the internet. And it also helps reduce some tax leakage to other communities. And lastly, the second public hearing on the use tax would be on January the 16th at 6 p.m. here at the council chambers, at which time we'll also be having a presentation from the finance department on the new program that we have for our budget, as far as presenting the budget to council, as well as revenue projections and other discussions concerning revenues. And that's it for my presentation.
All right, council. Any questions for Rudy at this time?
I did.
Yes, please.
Just have a couple. And thank you, Mr. Rodriguez, for your presentation to the chamber at breakfast. I did attend that, and it was informative. And I was able to get some feedback from our business community. I had a couple of follow-up questions in addition to the ones that you already answered. Can you clarify the storage portion of the tax that it's on page 2 of 23 of the amendments that we just adopted, but does that storage piece apply to items that were purchased in a definite time period, or does the purchase time relate in any manner to the storage piece?
That would be anything that's purchased after the March 1st, after it's instituted, not prior to.
Okay. So is it just more to clarify, you don't have to technically be using it. If you purchased it after it went into effect and you're storing it, the tax applies then as well?
Correct. That would be, traditionally that would be items would be like, for example, long-term. Traditionally they're bigger ticket items, such as a company that actually has, one example would be when APS brings in, let's say APS brings in a large shipment of telephone posts that are going to be sit here and may sit here for several years before they're ever installed. Yes, they would have to pay, if they haven't paid a sales tax on it, they would have to pay a sales tax on it.
Okay, understood, thank you. And then, are you also able to discuss or provide greater detail on the casual sales between individuals? For example, if I were to buy Councilmember Haragi's truck, $1,001, is that defined as a casual sale between individuals, or does that still meet the definition of the purchase that triggers the use tax?
That would be a casual sales, and quite frankly, if he's going to sell it for $1,000, I'll give him $1,500, and I'll take your truck off your.
Have you seen that truck? I was teasing, Councilmember.
Actually, that truck is priceless.
It's good. That's what I thought. That's what I meant.
But yes, that would be a casual sale.
Okay. Is there any dollar amount that's triggered by the casual sales between individuals?
No.
Does it matter if the casual sale is between individuals from different states?
No.
Okay.
It would be only if there's a business that actually is collecting sales tax. Now, if that individual has got a license and he is a business, he would, then that's a whole different story. Casual sales we consider as arm's length transactions. Right there, shake your hand and you acquire it, and that's it. But if it's coming from a business, yes, in a sense there would be.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions from council members? No? Okay. Well, I'm a little concerned because we don't have any public here tonight. And I know that you've done your presentation to the chamber and everything, but it does concern me a little bit. This is it's not a big tax, but it's a new tax that's being proposed. So it's always concerning when there's nobody here. And I've certainly heard from a lot of my constituents about it recently, both pro and con. Some think it would be a good thing, others think it would be doomsday. But I am certainly not opposed to a use tax. I'm not opposed to a variety of taxes that we've been discussing. But one of my concerns with moving forward with this, which I expressed last time we discussed, was we're not tying it to anything, just going into the general fund, which is a concern of mine. And we've all looked at the level of infrastructure needs that we have in our community and look at the long list, decades-long list of sidewalk improvements that need to be done and street improvements that need to be completed. And our water and wastewater infrastructure is $40 million worth of capital improvements that need to be done in the next 25 years, I think. And we're talking about implementing a tax which is our best estimate around $70,000 a year.
And then that's what I was going to add. It's really not a lot of money to put towards any specific item, and the general fund is used for those types of things that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Right, but this tax is just going to barely scratch the surface of the overarching needs that we have, capital needs, et cetera. So my concern is, this is one option, and there's other options that we've discussed as far as generating more revenue for the city that will have a lasting impact and make sure that we knock down some of those capital improvements. So in moving forward with this, are we then hamstringing ourselves to not being able to move forward with other ways that we've discussed?
I agree with you. I know that Sedona recently, made some changes to their tax code. I agree with you. I think those options need to be looked at.
Any other thoughts from?
Might I make a suggestion? As this is only the first reading at this time, and on the January 16th meeting, we're going to be discussing a lot of other revenues as part of our budget process. To kill this, I think, would be, at this point in time, would be premature. However, we can talk about the revenue issue at the next meeting, and again, it's still a second reading, and we can go ahead and deal with it then if you'd like to tag something to it, or in a sense, maybe postpone it for a later time.
I'd like to have the discussion about other options. I'd like to have that discussion personally, before we move forward, I agree with you. It's not going to be a big impact. I mean, it's under $100,000. It's not.
It won't be a big impact, and I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, because all along I've said I am in favor of it, and I'm in favor of looking at all other options that are on the table. But I'm afraid if we start to piecemeal this, then we're going to be piecemealing increases, and I think it's going to be an ineffective way of really looking at the overall, picture of the real needs that we have, infrastructure needs in this community, and how we're realistically going to meet our goal. And that's, if you look at the community survey, #1 complaint from the community is infrastructure. That's where they want to see us focus our attention. And I'm just concerned about implementing a tax which is peanuts compared to the amount of need that we have, that still isn't being earmarked towards that goal, that community goal that's been echoed time and time again of needing to fix our infrastructure.
And I have to agree with the mayor to a point in the fact that if you add one tax and then we do another tax and we do another tax, the citizens don't understand. They're not taking a whole lot of money from them, but when you have multiple taxes come up, so I think it would be a good idea if we come up, and I would suggest to the mayor perhaps do a work session. That's what's coming up next, and maybe have some actual give and take discussion here with the council members, and bring us some information that whether other options are available for us in the future. How is this gonna, what do we want down the line that people will know that we did a tax now and it's gonna affect their perception of having a tax in the future? I mean, there's a couple different avenues we can take, but I'd really like to sit down and discuss it with council members more in depth, something we really need to chew on a little bit.
And I think too, to be able to get the public more involved in this process in explaining to them all the options that are on our table. I think we need to explain to them what the need is, and I think it's obvious to most of our residents where the needs are, but also what the options are. And that doesn't just include raising taxes, it also includes making cuts and what those cuts would look like.
Agree.
Again, might I suggest we approve this one and look at them at the next session, at the 16th, when we come with some other revenue options. Obviously, there'll be revenue options. We can't act on them right away, obviously, but that'll be our first of several budget meetings that we're going to have. And the first one, usually out of the gate, is our revenue picture, how we're doing, and then this year we'll be adding some options available. So that we can at least get an idea before we actually just completely set this one aside. I'd much rather go ahead and at least get it going. If the council decides at the next reading that we shouldn't go out this route, or we want to postpone it, then we can go ahead and do it then. Luckily we have an option at this point in time.
Okay. Yeah, I would say not setting it aside, just setting it next to the other options.
Exactly.
So we can look at everything.
Exactly.
That sounds good. And this is just the first reading, so there's no action taken tonight.
And maybe at that time, people will pay a little more attention to what's going on, because it's also their responsibility to show up at meetings and be informed.
And in all honesty, my bad, I try to put the council meetings on the agenda, especially the budget ones, and this one was, since it wasn't an actual budget meeting, I just missed it completely. But the next meeting will have a budget item on there, so I'll go ahead and make sure that thing is posted up for the public.
Okay. Okay, then no action on this. We move on to
the first.
I thought we were going to have the first reading.
Oh, I'm sorry. We do need to have the first reading. Excuse me. So, Deputy Clerk, please read ordinance number 636.
Ordinance number 636, an ordinance of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, relating to the transaction privilege tax, removing model option 15, selecting local options AA, HH, and JJ, adopting the used tax amendments to the tax code of the City of Cottonwood by reference, establishing the effective date, providing for severability, and providing penalties for violations. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. We're all a little tongue-tied this evening. I know I am. We haven't been gone that long, have we? Okay, so next up is use of this year's Tribal State Gaming Fund proceeds to be received from the Yavapai Apache Nation. So I was contacted by the nation that they have funding available again, and wanted to put it on the council's table to find out where you feel this funding would be best utilized. And there's breakdown here that the clerk provided on how much money we've received in the past, and I believe in the past this money has gone toward, has it been funding a school resource officer?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor, and just to remind the council, that position is grant funded this year, so we don't need it there.
Okay. Some of the ideas I had, of course, which should be no surprise to council. We're short on the IT equipment purchase over at the Civic Center. That's one area where I think we could use a little bit of money. The Historic Preservation Commission is working on a memorial grant, or memorial brick program, where we're going to sell engraved bricks to be installed gratis by yours truly in front of the Civic Center. So we haven't worked out all the details on that yet, but we feel like that could raise a fairly significant amount of money to help offset those IT costs. But I don't, we're still going to move forward with that project, and that money could certainly go toward other needs like kiosks or historic district signage, or you name it. So I certainly think that that's one option, but I wanted the council to be able to discuss, other options.
I just have a question. Do we have an idea about how much? I'm assuming it's going to be between 16 and 20,000 that we'll be getting from the tribe. Do we have about an idea how much that IT is going to cost?
I think it was around 40, wasn't it?
40,000.
That's what I recall. Yes.
Okay.
And I'll confirm that.
Okay. And other communities have used this funding for a wide array of things. Jerome, what did they do? Paved a parking lot, I think, up there in Jerome, and made some parking lot improvements for the tourists.
Do we have any low-cost infrastructure items that are on our list?
Not low cost.
Not that amount. Not that low.
I mean, because we were just talking about infrastructure and the need for sidewalks and I mean, is there anything that was a small? I know we've talked before about the Heritage School needing. I know we did the sign and stuff, but is there anything like that the crosswalk that they were asking for? I know that got done, but it's something like that.
Not that I'm aware of.
No, not right off. The technology needs at the Civic Center, I think, is a good idea. Even though it may not fund it all, it's a chunk of it that, depending on how soon we can get the contribution from the nation, we could at least begin to install or purchase some of the equipment we need.
Yeah, and I think that suits their stated goal of promoting commerce and economic development. Because I think the plan for that, I'm hoping, is that we really use that as more of a driver of the economy, that we could have smaller conventions and that sort of thing for the community. So I think it would fit in line with that. But
I think that's a great idea. I'm glad you brought that to our attention. I think I know the IT is needed, and that's kind of a sorrowful miss when we've got so much going on there. We really need that equipment in there to bring that building to be the crown jewel that we want it to be.
I feel like the HPC can raise a fair amount of money with this Memorial Brick program, but we can discuss, we have a lot of other things we want to do as part of our strategic goals with the Historic Preservation Commission, like better signage in Old Town. So if there's any money left over, we could certainly put it toward that too.
Mr. Mayor, did they indicate when those distributions would be made?
If they did, I don't have that information in front of me right now. I'm not sure.
Because the Civic Center projected opening date is sometime in March. And so again, we could begin to purchase equipment, depending on when we get the disbursement.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure. I don't. Has it come through consistently in the past?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when.
Okay.
That's what I was trying.
It was usually pretty quick after we made a determination. I mean, it wasn't overnight, but it was
seemed
pretty
like
quick.
early spring.
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion, ideas, consideration?
I think it's a great one.
Okay.
Do we need to make a motion?
I think so, yeah.
May I make a motion?
Please.
I move to allocate this year's proceeds from the Yavapai Apache Nation's Tribal State Compact Funds to be used for IT needs for the Civic Center.
Second.
Okay, wait, Councilmember Allen make a motion, Councilmember Pfeiffer seconded it, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion's approved. And then we move on to, last on the list, item 7, request from the Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Committee for $2,000 for support of the 2018 Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans event scheduled for March 31, 2018 in the town of Camp Verde.
Mayor, City Council, this is generally an annual request that we get from the committee. This year it's being hosted by the town of Camp Verde, and so we've received a request from them to contribute the $2,000 as we've done, I think, the last 3 or 4 years. How many years this has gone on? I think this is the amount that we have generally contributed, and this probably should be a line item in our budget since it's probably going to continue to come up.
That was going to be one of my questions, was I didn't get a chance to look at the large budget. But so it's not a line item. And what does this money, because we're out of money in our contingency fund, so where does this money come from?
We would find it through salary savings and you know, stuff that we anticipated purchasing and didn't purchase, those kind of things. Out of a several $million budget, there's always a little bit of give and take, so we can find it through there. But it probably is something that needs to be budgeted.
You know I'm a huge supporter of our veterans and, you know, this event. I was on the committee last year, and I fully support this, but I also fully support us being fiscally responsible. And although $2,000 isn't much, if it's going to be something that we pay out every year, I feel strongly that it should be in our budget next year so that it's accounted for. And then I think if it's in our budget, it doesn't even have to come to us, does it? Or it would still...
Not necessarily, you know, generally we might bring something like this forward because it's just a good news item.
Right, no, and I agree, and I fully support it. I feel like we're trying to figure out how to word it. We're always told we'll find the savings in salaries, or we'll find, you know, the savings, and you know, I was against us flowing through the contingency fund as fast as we did, and I mentioned that when that happened. So I think things that we know are going to come up shouldn't be like this. They should be budgeted.
I agree. We could always, if we add it as a line item, we can always, the council will have the opportunity to discuss it every year when we do the budget process and say, well, this isn't a good fit for us anymore. And this is one of those items that I don't see ever being not a good fit for Cottonwood. I think we should always support this.
I agree 100%.
And again, this could, I used to have a contingency. I don't have a contingency anymore, and this is something that could have been paid out of my contingency, but again, bringing it forward. But I think it brings up that larger issue of revenues. I mean, I don't know what the council had this year, $15,000. That's not a workable contingency.
No.
Okay.
Time for a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
Move to provide $2,000 to the Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Committee to support the celebration scheduled March 31st, 2018.
Second.
We had Vice Mayor Hodeggy make a motion and Councilmember Althouse second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion's approved. Next is claims and adjustments.
I move we pay the claims and adjustments.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Norman made the motion. Allen seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion. Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.